It's the 21st of April 2026. My name is Leangari and my sign language interpreter this evening is Angel Lois. Tonight, a handful of protesters rounded up by anti-riot police outside the National Archives in Nairobi Central Business District and bundled into police vehicles in Nairobi will be spending their night behind bars. We have this story and many more lined up for you tonight, but first, let's take a look at the highlights. More than 11 protesters arrested in Nairobi as police dispersed a crowd that was gathering to participate in demonstrations against last week's fuel price hike. Just why did the planned demonstrations fail to take off? Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen lays the blame over the surge in Goonism in the country squarely on politicians, revealing that 14 of 17 suspected goons who attacked Vihiga Senator Godfrey Osotsi have fled the country.
In the areas that we have serious gangs, nearly all the political leaders, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, have at least a form of goons. They are disguised as bouncer.
Plus, anxiety mounts over the closure of Kenya Institute of Management KIM that has left many students uncertain about their academic and professional future. And the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, rules out any extension of the ongoing voter registration exercise whose deadline is in a week's time.
Na wale walijiandikisha kuchukua vitambulisho, tunapata hizo vitambulisho bado zingine hazijafika. Hilo ni tatizo kubwa sana kwa wale ambao wanategemea hizi siku 7 zinabaki.
And just to remind you about today's discussion, we're talking about the government that is finding it increasingly difficult to secure financing from the International Monetary Fund following the global lenders tightening of its conditions for assistance. We are looking at that topic tonight, and we are going to be speaking to Christopher Kirathe, who is a tax partner at the EY, and also we have Jotham Wedongo, who is a development finance specialist at the Expertise Global. And also we have Ruth Kinyanjui, who is an economist and governance expert. We're looking at IMF pressure versus Kenya's budget reality. Well, indeed, tough choices ahead there for the country as the IMF tightens its controls at this moment. We'll be making sense of what that conversation and IMF's warning entails and what it's all about. Of course, not to forget the budget, Kenya's budget, upcoming budget, and we'll definitely just try to look into that and help you understand more about what is happening in the country right now and why the IMF has sounded a warning to the Kenyan government. Of course, now let's just move on to stories that are making headlines tonight. A handful of protesters, as mentioned, rounded up by anti-riot police outside the National Archives in Nairobi Central Business District and bundled into police vehicles in Nairobi will be spending their night behind bars. The protesters had staged protests to reject the increased fuel prices, vowing to pressure the government to lower them as well as address the skyrocketing cost of living. More than 11 protesters were arrested as Nairobi's Central Business District remained relatively calm as the planned demonstrations failed to kick off today. Well, KTN's Daniel Kariuki has more details.
A section of youths were in Nairobi Central Business District for Reject Fuel Prices protest. However, the protests were abruptly thwarted. Anti-riot police, in collaboration with other officers from various units, beefed up security to ensure normalcy in the CBD. The protests were planned within the country to pressure the government to act on the rising cost of living. The protest did not go on as planned, as the capital remained relatively calm.
Na mimi personally wakati maandamano ijafika, kwa sababu wakati huu ni wakati watu wanataka kufanya kazi yao. Wakati maandamano bado miezi miwili mitatu ni watu wafanye maandamano.
Leo sijafungua biashara, hata sijui nitakula nini. Sijui nitaanzia wapi, hata mizigo zingine zimekataliwa huko kwa sababu asiwezi nikapanda huku juu ya gari.
Mimi kama makanga wa Thika Road, enye tunaumia. Kila siku mimi naenda nyumbani bila pesa. Bibi ashatoroka, watoto wameenda, nyumba imefungwa. Mwenye gari amechukua gari yake. Naenda wapi?
Nairobi Regional Police Commander Issa Mohammed warned against what he termed as illegal protests in the CBD as 11 demonstrators were arrested.
Sheria inaruhusu ndio, lakini hiyo under Public Order Act iko nidhamu. Hiyo nidhamu haijafuatwa. So long as that nidhamu haijafuatwa, we'll deal with you.
However, in Machakos, police were forced to intervene after protesters barricaded a section of the roads in the town as several were apprehended.
Alituambia kulingana na mahali Kenya imefika, hakika anaona sisi wananchi tunatumika vibaya, na katika kila hali ambayo inapandishwa juu, mwananchi wa kawaida kama vile mwanabodaboda kama mimi na wale wengine ambao ni kina mama mboga na wengine walio katika hali za chini, hakika tunapitia shida.
Siongopi, mafuta imepanda, iko na watatu waine. Sasa ndawakulisha na nini? Ananipandishia mafuta na niko na bike.
Most parts of the country remained calm. In Kakamega, boda operators and transport providers were lauded for maintaining normal operations and refraining from the planned protests.
Lakini vijana wetu wameendelea na shughuli zao za kawaida kwa sababu wao wanajali maslahi ya familia zao. Wamewajibika kusaidia familia zao, wamewajibika kuhakikisha kwamba tuko na ukuaji wa uchumi hapa Kakamega na pia kujenga taifa la Kenya. So vijana wangu wa Kakamega, kongole.
Those in custody are expected to be arraigned on Wednesday.
With the anti-climax of the protests that were scheduled for today, eyes will be shifting to the opposition that had given an ultimatum of 7 days to call for protests for the removal of the VAT on petroleum products. Daniel Kariuki, KTN, Nairobi.
Thank you for that report, Daniel Kariuki. Now, the much-hyped nationwide protest triggered by hiked fuel prices saw underwhelming turnout today. From the united opposition pushing the agenda and then suddenly abandoning it to the civil rights groups distancing themselves from it. The demos didn't materialize, but observers say maybe President William Ruto's assenting into law the VAT Amendment Bill 2026 might have deflated the planned demos. Our political affairs reporter Alan Ochanda has more.
The ghosts of the 2024 anti-finance bill nationwide protests that temporarily brought the country to a standstill might still be hovering in the air as political leaders appear to always capitalize on such situations. When the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, announced the hiking of petroleum prices Tuesday last week, it enraged Kenyans who threatened to pour to the streets. The opposition amplified the call. The opposition, however, suddenly pulled a surprise on Monday, pouring cold water on the flames they fanned.
Tuesday is Tuesday. If they cannot listen to our grievances, we are declaring mandamano on this Tuesday.
The real transformation of the country will take place on the ballot box. And the tools of change that you need is the ID and the vote.
Back in the streets of Nairobi, that normally witness multitudes whenever such calls are made, only pockets of protesters showed up.
The strategy for Mandamano may have not worked. Is this the end of it? I think it will be too early for anybody to go celebrating when we don't know what other dynamics are likely to come through. So there's more. I still think our fuel price is too high. with there's more we should do to bring it down.
Following the uproar last week, the National Assembly passed the VAT Amendment Bill 2026, which the President assented to on Friday. Whether this slammed brakes on protest momentum or not is debatable.
To say that some money has been reduced or some VAT has been reduced, all of a sudden Kenyans are happy, that would not be the point. That alone should not be the point to say, oh, he's done something, he has now deflected Mandamano. I think we need to see it this way. Kenyans have learned of the loss of lives before.
The United Opposition and the Linda Mwananchi group appear to be driving a similar agenda, but while the former was pushing for Tuesday's nationwide protests, the latter says it will make the country ungovernable on 24th, 25th and 26th of June. Kenyans had expressed their fury on the various social media platforms. The opposition chickened out at the last minute. But the president's assenting into law the VAT Amendment Bill 2026 has been viewed as one that deflated the calls to nationwide protests. Alan Ochanda, KTN.
Thank you, Alan, for that report. Now, the planned nationwide protests, which we're still covering today, over rising fuel prices and the soaring cost of living, drew far fewer numbers than expected today. Many Kenyans stayed away, sparking debate on whether demonstrations are losing steam. Kenya's youth have spoken and expressed their skepticism, noting that they are tired or repeated ineffective street actions, or rather, they are tired of repeated ineffective street actions. Esther Dana gives us more details on this development.
Despite calls for mass action by a section of opposition and activists, streets in Nairobi and the country at large remained quieter than anticipated. While the planned protest was to be a cry against increasing fuel prices and high cost of living, some youth say it lacked genuine push. For them, demonstrations are not a fashion statement.
If we do not understand the matrix towards solving this equation of fuel crisis and generally the economy, then going to the streets will not make sense, because we'll be going there pushing out anger and having no solution, making noise without a clear direction to where the noise should go to. We need to have an agenda towards why we are going to the streets. Without an agenda, then we lack the moral fabric to call out people and spur up emotions that push them towards the streets.
Young people, they say, are looking for well-packaged agendas with realistic outcomes, clear leadership alternatives, and resonance with daily realities. Referencing former Premier Raila Odinga, they say past leaders succeeded by having thoughtful agendas and solutions that connected with people before calling protests.
There is no way as an opposition leader you call a protest and you do not appear anywhere near the streets. Who are you leading? Who is supposed to be there? You mobilize people towards a cause. You do not mobilize people to show that you have numbers.
They say repeated protests have failed to deliver tangible change, leaving many citizens, especially the youth, disillusioned. Also, they report staying away from the protests to prevent their numbers being used for political propaganda or personal gain by politicians and activists.
An activist is good at identifying a problem, but they have demonstrated clearly that they do not bring in solution-oriented narratives that are able to change the problem that we have, the adversity into purpose that otherwise leads into good life for the citizen. Number two, it is the character of politicians to joyride narratives so as to propagate them upwards.
According to the youth, the push by national leaders for the demonstrations has failed to demonstrate the ability to deliver solution-driven narratives that translate problems into tangible improvements. While the protest may not have drawn huge crowds, it acted as a clear indicator that Kenyans now demand for smarter, results-focused advocacy instead of repeated street action that yield little to no change. Esther Diana, KTN, Nairobi.
And away from protests, fresh concerns are mounting after Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen revealed that 14 suspects linked to an alleged plot to attack Vihiga's Senator Godfrey Osotsi have fled the country. Appearing before a parliamentary committee, Murkomen told MPs the suspects are believed to have been part of a coordinated plan targeting the senator, but have since escaped across the border, raising serious questions about how the network operates and how far it stretches. Grace Nganga has more.
A multi-agency search is now underway for the 14 suspects linked to the attack of Vihiga Senator Godfrey Osotsi, with security agencies racing against time to track them down after they reportedly slipped out of the country.
Why have they not been arrested up to now? The 13 or 14 ran out of the country to the neighboring country. So, but the IG and the DCI are on them.
Authorities say the group is believed to have been part of the coordinated plan targeting the senator, raising alarm over how they managed to organize, execute plans and escape detention.
Why are you not able to deal with it? The DCI are on them, working with the authorities in the neighboring country, and we will arrest all of them eventually. As soon as they step in this country, they will all be arrested.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen told the Parliamentary Committee on National Security that the suspects are being pursued through regional and international security networks, warning that crossing borders will not shield them from justice.
And I hope that will be the first example to show that violence doesn't pay.
In a rare and candid admission, the Interior CS said the problem of goons goes beyond crime. It is politically driven. In his response, Murkomen blamed section of the political class for fueling the problem, accusing some politicians of enabling and financing gangs for political gain.
No amount of guns, bullets, tear gas can resolve this problem. Let me tell you, you go for the rally on Sunday. Can you for sure tell this house that you will not mobilize criminals to accompany you to the rally? Take away with the gangs, they will never get a single vote. The only reason why the voter puts their name there is because they either terrorize them or they have eliminated their opponent.
Members of Parliament raised concerns over increasing incidents of organized groups disrupting political meetings, questioning why security agencies have struggled to contain what they described as a growing menace. Murkomen identified Kisumu as one of the regions most affected by gang activity, describing it as a current hotspot.
I don't need to tell you, Karoli, you are not a stranger in Jerusalem. You know Kisumu, you know Nyalenda, you know all those places. You know what has been happening. It's not Kisumu alone. It includes your own county. You know the same in Siaya, Migori. And it's not only you. Everybody else here knows, because we have used Kisumu town, that as long as you are passing a particular area and they know certain leader is coming or whatever, you will either have boys asking you for
The revelations now raise fresh questions about political accountability and whether ongoing crackdowns will be enough to contain the growing influence of these groups. Grace Nganga, KTN.
Thank you for that report, Grace. Now, almost 2 years have passed since ODM party cabinet secretaries joined the Kenya Kwanza administration and began serving in an inclusive government referred to as broad-based. But Kenyans are now complaining about their role in this government, as many feel these cabinet secretaries have drifted into politics and forgotten their core mandate. Protests being organized across the country are linked to the lack of accountability in two ministries within the inclusive government. Vera Mora with details.
In 2024, after a handshake deal between President William Ruto and the late ODM leader Raila Odinga, several ODM heavyweights joined government. They were billed as experts who could steady the UDA administration through economic turbulence. 2 years later, their performance is drawing sharp criticism. These cabinet secretaries are accused of sidelining their mandate in favor of political ambitions. Instead of tackling crises in their ministries, they are increasingly visible in campaign trails, positioning themselves for Ruto's re-election in 2027 and even eyeing future presidential bids.
Initially, the president had indicated that in his government he would not have politicians. But the 4 experts are all politicians. We struggle to see certain expertise that is coming from the experts other than political stability that the president was looking for.
CS Opiyo Wandai's energy docket is mired in a fuel importation scandal with inflated procurement costs and persistently high pump prices. Instead of easing Kenya's burden, his expertise is now being questioned as the scandal undermines confidence in his leadership.
What if Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga was here with us? What if he were alive? Would CS Wandai still be CS of energy, particularly when corruption scandals, entangle him despite being an expert? It leaves, as you say, an egg in the faces of both parties. The president's party, a gentleman who also is struggling with a lot of integrity issues, concerns that the Gen Zs raise and Kenyans continue to raise around transparency of government.
CS John Buddy, in charge of the crucial treasury docket, has failed to deliver tax relief, leaving VAT high and businesses squeezed. Meanwhile, budget boosts for the president and the deputy president raise accusations of misplaced priorities. Buddy's inability to champion tax relief has left Kenyans wondering whether his appointment was about reform or political appeasement.
Ministry of Cooperatives and Micro.
Cooperative CS Wycliffe Oparanya's Hustler Fund has been plowed by debt instead of his docket creating wealth. It has deepened financial strain. Nyota and other questionable initiatives looks more like failed promises than a hub of empowerments. Meanwhile, CS Hassan Joho of the mining and blue economy docket has gone quiet on pressing issues in the blue economy. Despite a Kenyan vessel detained in Tanzania and mining projects in Kakamega and Siaya marred by controversies, his focus has shifted to cost politics, where allies are pushing him as a potential running mate for Ruto.
We look forward to seeing how this boils down, particularly around the concerns of the broad-based government. ODM threatening to go it alone. As we speak now, they have threatened to indicate that they will not have any negotiations or conversations around negotiating with UDA. So again, that leaves a lot of questions around the place of the 4 experts.
Critics say these ODM experts have morphed into political operatives. Nearly 2 years later, the performance of the experts that ODM donated to join the president's regime are coming under heavy scrutiny.
Next year, tutapigia Ruto 100 kwa 100.
As a series of wobbles, the government is experiencing drops on their doorsteps.
Kama ni noma.
Vera Mora, KTN.
Well, that story by Vera Mora brings us to our first short break. When we return after the break, we tell you why pressure is mounting on Nairobi City Boss Governor Johnson Sakaja over the recent Mama Lucy and Mama Margaret Kenya Hospital Board appointments. Indeed, a story you want to learn more about, and of course, others we have lined up for you. So don't go too far. We'll be back shortly. When we return, we tell you about demonstrations staged by residents of Emgwen in Nandi County. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching KTN Prime with me, Leangari. Now, pressure is mounting on Nairobi City Boss Governor Johnson Sakaja over the recent Mama Lucy and Mama Margaret Kenyatta Hospital Board appointments. At the heart of the controversy is the appointment of former Bunge la Mwananchi President Calvin Okoth, alias Gaucho, and musician Ken Wamaria. Governance and legal experts have faulted the first-time governor over what they term as total disregard of Chapter 6 of the Constitution, arguing that the appointment failed the constitutional test.
The move by Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja is facing fresh scrutiny over health governance under his administration, following the appointment of boards to various city hospitals amid concerns over certain appointees failing to meet the required threshold and expertise on matters of health. Calvin Okoth, popularly known as Gaucho, is among the individuals whose nomination has raised eyebrows. Top among the concerns is his academic qualifications. Of greater concern is the fulfillment of Chapter 6 of the Constitution on leadership and integrity. Gaucho has been on the spotlight over political remarks likely to threaten stability. His utterances, especially during the Gen Z-led demonstrations last year, raises pertinent questions over his suitability.
It's a mockery of Chapter 6 of the Constitution. We are not alive to the principles and tenets that the specific safeguards that the Constitution has put in place. Nobody cares about it. Nobody looks at these key principles. Nobody looks at the constitutional values when these kind of people are being put into offices. And it sets a very dangerous precedent. We are supposed to look at their morals, their ethics, their past conducts and characters, their general feeling in terms of, in the eyes of the members of the public, the level of confidence in as far as public trust is concerned.
Many attribute the recent appointments, including that of musician Ken Maria, to political cronyism at the expense of technical competence. City lawyer Suleiman Bashir notes that the trend of political cronyism initiates a cycle of poor governance, resulting in reduced service delivery, widespread public corruption, and the loss of institutional trust.
We seem to have taken a drift away from the Constitution. We are rewarding political cronyism rather than looking at the aspect of constitutional fulfillment. It is not here at all. Question of, I think, competence is not there, is neither here nor there. The aspect of productivity is not here. Qualifications have not been looked at. Merit is not here. The aspect of ethics of the person has never been checked. So it is a very questionable long list that we have been treated to by the governor and his team.
Social media is awash with concerns over whether, indeed, the ODM diehard completed his studies. Netizens raise concerns over his appointment, some in support, while others slam Governor Sakaja over the appointment. However, amid these concerns, questions are abound over whether such appointments can be subject to litigation.
It can be challenged in court. It can be put to those particular safeguards under Article 73 and 75. All those principles that are listed under the Constitution is clearly lacking, and there are very many constitutional grounds upon which this can be challenged. It is important for us to have some court interventions on this, and that particular court intervention, that particular activism that we expect from the members of the public is going to save us from this kind of mockery that the governor has treated us to.
Meanwhile, Gaucho has defended the appointment, saying he would use the position to advocate for the voiceless, insisting that board membership is about wisdom, community understanding, and representation rather than formal academic qualifications alone. The appointment was formalized in a Gazette notice dated April 16, 2026 by County Executive Committee Member for Health Services Cezanne Silantori. Gaucho will serve a 3-year term alongside other board members.
And the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, says there will be no extension of the ongoing voter registration exercise, urging eligible Kenyans to take advantage of the remaining 1 week to enlist. The commission says it has registered over 1.4 million new voters in the past 3 weeks, but is now calling on young people, especially Gen Zs, to turn out in larger numbers. Our reporter Catherine Imuraget has more details.
IEBC Commissioner Hassan Nur Hassan has reaffirmed that the voter registration exercise will not be extended. Speaking during an inspection tour in Meru County, Hassan emphasized the importance of meeting strict timelines ahead of the next electoral cycle.
The remaining 7 days will be very critical for us to push these figures slightly higher so that every Kenyan is given an opportunity to vote for his leaders as and when we organize the elections next year, 2027.
Meru County has so far recorded a 50% turnout, with about 40,000 of the targeted 80,000 new voters registered as of Monday evening. However, challenges persist. Meru County Returning Officer William Dungu cites delays in the issuance of national identity cards as a major setback, locking out many eligible applicants. He also points to insecurity in parts of Igembe and Tigania, which has slowed access to registration centers.
Kuna wale walijiandikisha kuchukua vitambulisho, tunapata hizo vitambulisho bado zingine hazijafika. Hilo ni tatizo kubwa sana kwa wale ambao wanategemea hizi siku 7 zinabaki.
At the same time, IEBC Chairperson Erastus says the Commission has made significant progress nationwide. Over the past 3 weeks, the Commission has successfully registered 1.4 million new voters, while urging young people, especially those from the Gen Z generation, to turn out in large numbers. Erastus was speaking during a 2-day visit in Turkana County, where he met with stakeholders to boost the exercise.
Countrywide, we have registered more than 1.4 million within about 3 weeks, and that the figures are very encouraging. And for Turkana in particular, we are currently at about 47,000, which is encouraging, and Turkana is so far leading in the Rift Valley region.
Meanwhile, the commissioner has raised concern over low voter registration in Siaya County. IEBC acting CEO Moses Ledama Sunkuli says the county has only achieved 47% of its target, with neighboring Homa Bay County also lagging behind.
What we are doing is not only registering new voters, we are also transferring voters to their voting stations of choice.
With the deadline fast approaching, the IEBC maintains that the exercise will not be extended, calling on all eligible Kenyans to act now or risk missing out on the next general election. Catherine Muraget, KTN, Nairobi.
And elsewhere, residents of Kapkonoin in Emgwen constituency, Nandi County, held demonstrations today protesting what they claim to be deliberate obstruction of a local access road project by influential individuals in the area. The residents cited emergency delays and broken promises despite public participation forums that endorsed the road, saying community-funded repair efforts were met with threats. And as Elvis Koskei reports, they want the relevant stakeholders to be accountable.
The residents, visibly agitated and filled with fury and anger, mobilized early in the morning before marching in large numbers to the disputed section of the road. They voiced frustration over the prolonged lack of passable access, explaining that the poor state of the road has made daily life difficult and dangerous.
Juzi tulipoteza mzee hapa kwa ajili ya njia. Hii njia wakati inaponyesha hakuna mahali unaweza pita. Hata unapoangalia kwa wakati huu, gari ikikutana na mtu hakuna mahali unaingia, na ni mwanadamu na gari. So kile kitu tunalilia hapa ni kwamba hii njia iweze kufunguliwa.
Si shamba lako mzee, utuachie shamba yetu, barabara ipanuliwe. Wakati wa hapa wapate kufika town ama kufika mahali wanaenda.
Madam Chief, kwa nini ujamaa tuambie power belongs to the people? We are the persons who are being taxed for them to be in that office. Kwa nini mtu tumeenda to an extent tunatoa pesa yetu ya kuunda hii barabara, lakini yeye ameenda anablock kama nani?
Residents noted that they fully participated in the public participation forums organized by authorities regarding the road project, where they turned up in large numbers to present their views and endorse the plan. They say their opinions were collected, recorded, and the process was officially approved, raising their hopes that the construction will begin.
Saidie, kama kuna watu wako na pesa, sisi wanyonge hatuna pesa ya kuweza kupishana na wao. Ndio tumejitolea ya kwamba tunakuja kama sisi wana kijiji wenye tunapitia hii barabara na wenye tuko na shida kwa hii barabara, ndio tumeomba ya kwamba watufungulie.
Kari iwezi pita, pikipiki iwezi pita. Wakikutana na kari wanakongana. Sasa tunaomba hii njia watengeneze hii njia.
Na wasipofungua in the next 14 days, we are going to streets. Sisi wenyewe tupate governor atuambie ni kwa nini. We need to help ourselves. Kama serikali haina pesa, we walk by our own.
They issued a 14-day ultimatum to the relevant authorities. They warned that if their complaints were not resolved within that period, they vowed to demonstrate all the way to the county offices and the Nandi County Commissioner. Elvis Kosgei, KTN, Nandi County.
And the rising number of widows and widowers in Kenya is now drawing concern, with calls for the government to establish a dedicated state department to address their needs. In Vihiga County alone, more than 50,000 people are living without their spouses, many struggling to survive. KTN's Violet Auma has more.
In Vihiga County, thousands of widows and widowers are grappling with life after loss as economic hardship and social stigma continue to take toll on them.
Sikukuwa na yeyote wa kunishika mkono. Nimeishi tu maisha ya kuhangaika hapa na pale.
For Betan Akasa David, losing her husband 18 years ago marked the beginning of a difficult journey, a journey full of uncertainty.
Alipoaga 2008, sikukuwa na amani. Kama mama mjane, nilikuwa na vita kwa boma, lakini yote Mungu aliniwezeshea.
She turned to the Pentecostal Assemblies of God Church for comfort, but life outside the church has remained a struggle. With no stable income, her children were forced to drop out of school, reflecting the harsh realities faced by many widows in the country.
Firstborn ali drop out akiwa form 3. Nimekosa school fees. Nikajaribu kutoka niajiriwe na watu humu ndani ndiposa watoto wangu waelekee na masomo waendelee, haikuwezekana. Second born pia msichana, naye drop form 4. Nimekosa pesa ya kurejesti mtihani tu. Mzee wangu ndiye alikuwa breadwinner kwa hilo boma.
Beyond the financial strain, social isolation remains a challenge, with many widows reporting stigma within their communities.
Ukisalimia mume wa mtu, hiyo ni dhambi kwa wale wanawake wako na mabwana. Kozi akikuona kila wakati anakushuku.
Yeye anaelewa mawazo ya Mungu. So he intercedes.
Today, Betan joins other women at Nyangori PAG Church Mission in Vihiga County for a convention aimed at empowering them with both spiritual guidance and life skills. The initiative, supported by the Office of the President's Women's Rights Advisor, seeks to help widows and widowers cope with societal pressures and build resilience. She says the numbers of widows and widowers in Vihiga County is increasing, with many facing economic challenges and lacking adequate support.
Na tumeona upande huu vijana wetu wanaaga sana. Tunawapoteza vijana sana. Tunawapoteza wanaume wetu sana. Swali ni nini inafanyika upande huu wa Vihiga? Naambiwa data saizi imefika more than 50,000 widows and widowers.
Sisi tunaona wajane, yani tumefinyiliwa. Tunaona hata huku nje misaada inakuja ni ya wajane, lakini wale wengi wana benefit si wajane.
Uwe Bwana wangu, am my savior, na mwokozi wangu.
Violet Auma, KTN.
And as we come to another short break, I want us to quickly look at the Standard newspaper, tomorrow's edition. That's Kenya's bold newspaper. On the front page, we have a story there whose headline reads, "Playing Clever." This story talking about when he appeared before members of parliament yesterday. Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen either misunderstood his brief or, as the lawyer he is, preferred ambiguity that let him dodge responsibility. Tasked with overseeing security, he pointed fingers everywhere. But at the office he leads, he branded some lawmakers warlords, cast governors as sponsors of crime, and accused the judiciary of leniency towards gangsters. Yet, he named no suspects, pursued no ringleaders, and offered no clear evidence of decisive enforcement against the criminals. Interesting story there. You will find this story in page 4 of tomorrow's Standard newspaper. That's Kenya's bold newspaper, the Standard. Of course, expect to find many more stories beyond that one, but just make sure you get yourself a copy. Right now, let's take a quick break. Coming after the break will be Kelvin Nyakundi with news from the world of business. Stay tuned. Ahead in business, Kenya's push to tackle youth unemployment draws fresh backing from global development and private sector players.
Hello there, this is Business Prime. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi. Now, Cooperative Bank Group has reported profit before tax of 40.3 billion shillings for the year ended 31st December 2025, compared to 34.8 billion recorded in the previous year. Now, an impressive 15.8% growth. Now, the performance by the bank underscores the gains made under the 2025-2029 strategy. Total assets increased by 11.32% to 827.4 billion shillings from 743.3 billion in 2024. Now, the board proposed a total dividend of 2 shillings and 50 cents per share, including a 1 shilling interim dividend, representing a 67% increase from the 1 shilling and 50 cents paid in 2024. Now, Kenya's export-driven economy is facing a stress test as geopolitical tensions in the Middle East threaten to derail a record-breaking trade year. The Ministry of Investments, Trade and Industry has issued a report on impact of Middle East crisis on Kenya's trade and export sector. Now, according to the statement, the current geopolitical tensions places 164.6 billion shillings worth of annual exports to the Middle East at risk, one of Kenya's most strategic and fastest growing markets. The crisis has led to the suspension and restriction of key maritime and air cargo routes through the Red Sea and Gulf corridors, leading to an increase in transit times by 10 to 20 days and air cargo delays of up to 48 hours. Are impacting perishable exports such as flowers and fresh produce. Kenya's push to tackle youth unemployment is drawing fresh backing from global development and private sector players, but questions remain on scale and impact. The United Nations Development Programme and China Road and Bridge Corporation are pushing to boost skills in young people across multiple sectors. At the center of the deal is a 75 million shilling investment over 3 years, with a projected reach of 15,000 youth.
Aim is to place the young people in the private sector as a way to give them an opportunity for getting a job. You all know that in Kenya, like in many other African countries, but let's focus on Kenya today, job opportunity for young people is a huge development challenge. I think even the officials have been very vocal about this. You have 1 million people entering the job market every year, but you have about 200,000, 300,000 job opportunity only. So we have to join forces with the government.
Our focus today is on youth employment program. So I would also like to say that this year, as CIBC, we are participating in a lot of infrastructure projects, more than just the SGR Phase 2B. And we wish that through these infrastructure programs, we can onboard at least 1,000 young Kenyans into these projects, and so that we put our focus on the young people of Kenya.
Baku, the city where the first mechanical oil drilling happened, is reshaping its public transport from fossil buses into electric buses in an effort to make the city more sustainable. KTN's Nwakip Kemboi reports from Baku.
As of the end of 2025, close to 800,000 electric buses operated globally, slowly but surely making mobility more sustainable. Azerbaijan, which produces 457,000 barrels of oil per day, is not left behind.
Baku is, in all sense, an oil city. What do I mean? It was built on oil money, but now the world is changing, and so is the city. One way that is changing so much is the issue of electromobility, adopting cleaner ways of moving within this particular city.
The country's capital, Baku, currently has 400 electric buses with a target of adding 200 buses annually until 2029.
And one of the goals was to avoid diesel engine buses. At the first stage, to move to CNG buses, and later on electric buses.
Through key partnerships that saw local assembly of electric buses, development of key infrastructure, including charging systems, is accelerating electric buses rollout.
We have, few specially designed electric bus depots in Baku City. Right now we have 3 of them, and each one is equipped by enough number of chargers.
To further complement the sustainable transport agenda, micromobility, which assists with covering short-range trips, have been set up.
Buses not alone can deliver sustainable transport goals and not achieve transport goals. We also need short-term and short-range trips for the city, and micromobility elements like scooters and buses. They are bikes. They are very important for achieving this sustainability.
Buses make up to around 5% of global transport carbon emissions. High upfront cost and lack of operational knowledge on electric bus systems continue to hinder uptake of electric buses globally. Nokip Kimboy, KTN.
All right, with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Business Prime. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi. Have a wonderful night.
And on that note, we are coming to a close of this part of the news bulletin. But first, I want us to take a look at the Standard newspaper once more, just to remind you on what to expect in tomorrow's edition. Of course, on the front page there of the Standard newspaper, Kenya's bold newspaper, we are seeing a story there whose headline reads, "Playing Clever." When he appeared before members of parliament yesterday, Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen either misunderstood his brief or, as the lawyer he is, preferred ambiguity that let him dodge responsibility. While tasked with overseeing security, he pointed fingers everywhere, but at the office he leads. He branded some lawmakers warlords, cast governors as sponsors of crime, and accused the judiciary of leniency towards gangsters. Yet he named no suspects, pursued no ring leaders, and offered no clear evidence of decisive enforcement against the criminals. Well, this story is in page 4 of tomorrow's Standard newspaper. That's Kenya's bold newspaper once again. And you will definitely get not just that story, but many others. So just make sure you get yourself a copy. And just a quick look at tomorrow's weather forecast. We have quite a lot happening as far as weather is concerned, and we'll definitely be having something close to rainfall, and we know that a weather alert has been issued for several parts of the country with heavy rainfall expected in the coming days. The rain may be accompanied by strong gusty winds exceeding 25 knots, while along the coast sea waves are expected to rise above 2 meters, posing a risk to marine activities. Well, right now let's take a look at a more detailed outlook of the weather. And also, just to remind you about tonight's discussion, we are looking at the IMF pressure versus Kenya's budget reality. Tough choices ahead, definitely, for the Kenyan government that is finding it increasingly difficult to secure financing from the International Monetary Fund, that's IMF, following the global lenders tightening of its conditions for assistance. We want to take a look at more details on this particular development and just help you understand what is exactly happening. And to help me delve into tonight's discussion, we have Christopher Kirathe, a tax partner at the EY. We have also Jotham Wadongo, who is a development finance specialist at the Expertise Global. And of course, also we have Ruth Kinyanjui, an economist and governance expert. An interesting discussion. You do want to stay tuned for that one. So we'll be taking a short break. Don't go too far. We'll be back shortly.